topic of leadership. Now, that single word conjures up probably one of the most synonymous definitions, regardless of how it's used. We think of leadership, we think of power, we think of success, we think of people who have innovated and made lots of money, right? Right. Well, why not? Because we all tend to think that if you've got something good to do, then the world wants to reward you for it. Truth is that leadership, more often than not, is a perception of a myth, and it isn't the truth. So the question I have for you to consider right now is, what is leadership? If you had to define leadership in one word, what would you define it as? Well, I have some books. And these books tell me, depending on which one I read, one of them says, I've got to be small and care about things that I don't care about. The other one says, I've got to do 15 different things to get it right. This one tells me, run over everybody along the way. As long as you get the trophy, then you're number one. This one right here tells me, if I look at the data long enough, it'll give me my answer. This one tells me, don't spend time alone, because it's the people around me which are going to determine which doors I have to walk through in life. This one, though, right here. This one I actually had some personal buy-in about 10, 12 years ago. Sat into a leadership course, and they introduced this book. John Maxwell, hands down, probably to me has the best answer to the question of what is leadership. And he does it succinctly in one word. And that word is influence. Without influence, you have no one to eat dinner with. Without influence, you've got no data because you can't sell a product because no one knows who you are. Without influence, how do you know who the little people are? Without influence, you have nothing else to work on because when you don't spend time with people, then you don't need to change very much. And lastly, number one takes a whole heck of a lot more than running over people along the way. So, influence. Influence is every day, everywhere in our lives. We experience it right now. You made the joke about the government. Well, that's leadership. Run amok. They are influencing your everyday life to their decisions, and unfortunately, we give them power to do so. So, why does it matter? Why does leadership matter? Well, according to the book that I've read, and the personal buy-in I have into it, leadership matters because everything rises and falls on leadership. For example, how many of you by show of hands are an employee for another company? You work for someone. How many of you by show of hands are the boss? How many of you have employees that are your own boss? Okay. How many of you have ever been affected by a decision an employer made or another employee made? Okay. Leadership matters, doesn't it? Now, the one thing that I run into most commonly when I talk about this subject or whenever I engage in kind of a conversation, and the question is, well, I'm a manager. I'm a leader. Right? Absolutely wrong. The two aren't the same. See, the thing about management is taking a task that's been given to you and doing it. It's saying, okay, I've been told I need to do A, B, and C, therefore I'm going to do A, B, and C. Now, I may do it to the best of my ability or the least of my ability, but I'm going to get it done. That's what a manager does. A leader, though, says, okay, I've been given this task. Now, who do I need around me to help me get it done? What is the effects of what I'm doing? And does it have any staying power? Because after all, most leaders aren't looking for results. They're looking for legacies. And legacy is something that outlives you, that perpetuates even when you take your hands off of it and retire. It continues to grow, it continues to evolve. One of the best comments I've ever heard about leadership, because you go through the self-assessments and you talk, and okay, when am I getting to the point of being a good leader? And the defining position is when you can duplicate yourself into another leader. You can take someone who has no leadership potential and make them a leader. That's when you really become a valuable leader. Now, we have captains of industry, Henry Ford. We have the McDonald brothers. We have some well-known generals, Schwarzkopf being one of them, and another, which we seem to quote all the time, is Winston Churchill. However, in their own right, these were not good leaders. And the reason why they weren't good leaders is because their influence only carried as far as their occupation. For example, the McDonald brothers never would have become more than a 5-chain or 12-chain restaurant had it not been for Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc was the one who turned it into 1 billion people served every day. Henry Ford didn't have the vision beyond the Model A. It wasn't until his second-generation grandson came along and said, we need to change some things up, that they truly began to become a very profitable, competitive company. And then we have the ubiquitous and often quoted Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was a voice, and he lent voice in a time when it was much needed. So probably one of the most relevant leaders I can think of today would be Steve Jobs. Not because he did anything great with people, but if we go back to the premise of leadership being about influence, you have a man whose singular focus developed a product which influenced us and influenced the way we thought. For example, think differently. Right? Took the computer and put it into a single box and took it outside the box, so to speak. Took common everyday things and turned them around. Now, the way he did it is every bit as important as what he did. And that's the thing that most leaders will catch and hold on to, is they aren't concerned so much about the results. A good leader isn't going to sit there and say, well, I got this done. I made this amount of money and I made this progress. They look at it and they judge themselves and say, okay, I did this. I created this product or I made this money, but how did I do it? Can I, at the end of the night, lay my head down on the pillow and know that I didn't run over anybody in the process and didn't have to claw my way to the top? A lot of them care about how they get there just as much as the fact that they get there. So what is the critical component to cultivating leadership? Because of my religious persuasion, I look at every opportunity I have to develop my character. So if I have a difficulty with another employee or with someone else or a family issue, when these things come along, I don't look at them and say, oh, this is my conquest. I need to get over this. I need to beat it out. I need to win. I say, this is an opportunity for my character to grow. Because here's the saying I have, and I borrowed it from someone else, is you can't fire a cannon from a canoe. But a canoe will sink the same as a battleship. And the interesting thing about that is that a canoe is every bit as capable of carrying people as a battleship is. Just the numbers are different, that's all. But you can have these tremendous skills and these talents and these giftings naturally, innately. You can develop skills that can outshine everybody else. And so you carry around this cannon with you everywhere you go. Look at my cannon. Polish it. You want to see shoot it? Psych you out. And you keep walking around this cannon, waiting for the day when you can use it, right? That's what character says. Character says, I don't need to fire it off right now. Ego says, watch this baby go. And he lights it off, and off it goes. But the platform, which is developed by character, is that canoe or it's that battleship. So you've got this impressive cannon, and you drag it out to your canoe, thinking, hey, I got all it takes now, let's go fire this baby off. You lay it in there, and you row out, light it up, and next thing you know, you're looking for air, because you sank yourself in the process. So the critical component to cultivating effective leadership is character. Every single opportunity you have in life, whether it's as an employee, as an employer, as just an everyday person or a family member, father, daughter, son, mother, brother, every one of those opportunities and challenges is another one to develop your character. And that's what leaders are looking for. Leaders are always learning. They're always looking for the advantage in whatever they're facing. So, the next question I always get whenever we're talking about the subject is, well, then how do I know whether I'm a leader? Because how many of you are under the impression that leadership is something you're born with or born without? Just raise your hand if you believe that. Okay. Wow. Normally I get a lot more hands. Okay, so you guys are a little bit in the know. The truth is that leadership can be acquired. And most people do acquire leadership skills. For example, management opportunities will create experiences to teach you how to lead. However, there's always going to be this element where you're going to hit the lid, so to speak. You're going to keep climbing, all of a sudden you're just going to plateau, and you're not going to go any further. You're going, what is it? A lot of times, that is because of personal abilities. It could be strengths. For example, my wife is extremely intuitive with people. Me, I'm really good at making decisions on the fly and having them turn out correctly. So those two strengths together, if I couple them with her, then she chooses the right people to get the things that I need to get done. But if I do it on my own, I'm always missing that one half. So one of the things about being an effective leader is you have to know what your limits are, because then you know what you can improve on. So you can't walk in the woods without a map expecting to get somewhere, because you don't have anywhere to go, and you don't know how you're going to get there. What is the old saying that we hear all the time is that a leader without followers is just a guy taking a walk. Well, we got a lot of those that we pay for full-time in our government. Yeah. They're leaders taking a walk on their own, because there is no influence, because they haven't given themselves to the character process. They haven't done anything that benefits anybody else. Therefore, there's no one following them. And the ones that are following them are looking for a handout. And they're saying, what can you give me? What can you give me? But men and women of character will be able to lead from inside. And those people will really, really make a difference. So, one of the last questions I want to ask you as I close. Every one of you has the ability to become an effective leader. But you have to decide ahead of time what you want to achieve with your leadership. Mr.
Aaron, fellow Toastmasters, your speech was called the Leadership Myth. And it was not a bloviation, although I'm pretty sure that was a movie that came on Cinemax once I didn't watch. But I can go there. Your start of your speech could have been a little stronger. You started off with, well, after the sales pitch, which was cool, and then after an explanation of what your speech was, you should kind of tag those in the end if you have disclaimers or whatever to do. I'm losing stuff all over the place out of this thing here. All right. You started with, today I'm going to. Don't tell us what you're going to do it. So, get to something. When David started his speech, you notice he started off and just started going off with fairy tales, legends. And it caught our attention. That's what you need to do, is start off with something strong. Don't tell us, I'm going to do this today and explain this. Just get in there, grab our attention, make us want to hear what you have to say. Secondly, when you have a rhetorical question, wait. Then respond. Let them think. You had a question and you said, right? Right. Right on through it. And then you went through it. Then another time you asked, how would you define leadership? And right into it. Wait a second. Let our wheels turn a little bit. Ask us, how would you define leadership? Then offer the answer. We know that it's a rhetorical question. You don't expect us to shout it out. But give us a little time. I thought the books were very effective. Reading off the titles, throwing them on the ground, and then picking them back up again. Although it'd probably be easier if you had a table in front of you instead of having to do the stooping. That was very effective. I noticed you kind of defined it. Then you did a compare and contrast between leadership and management. Then you went through how to develop leadership skills. Then defined who is a leader, who could be a leader. And then you left us at the end with a charge. I have a question for the Toastmasters here. What was his closing remark?
What do you want to achieve?
Is that what he said? Yeah. Okay. And he told us to do something about it. What did he tell us to do?
Find out what kind of leadership you want.
Well, he had a verb in there. He told us specifically to do something. It was a verb. My question is, so no remember, how much was the influence? Yeah. So there has to be something stronger there. My question also, Toastmasters, what are you going to do differently after hearing what he said? Did anybody make a note on something you're going to do differently now? Remember, his intent was to inspire us. To inspire means kicking the butt. We're going to go do something, right? Motivate. Motivation. Motive for action, right? So, yes?
To be different perspective on management rather than enacting somebody else's ideas, you actually contribute to the idea rather than just being a copycat.
Okay, so you got a definition out of that. So what are you actually going to do today? You're going to go home and do something, a verb. He actually said decide ahead of time what you're going to do and go do it. All right. You didn't use the word of the day, which is hard to work in. You didn't have any filler words. Good enunciation, good projection, well-dressed, you fit the part. Body language was not distracting, not overly emphasizing. I did like the books and that type of stuff. You did express confidence and a positive attitude towards what you were talking about. You used some analogies, the cannon and the battleship versus the canoe, but stories like what David used, pull you in. So go take that another step and make a story out of that analogy. Okay? And that'll be even more effective. Overall, a good speech, and for a New Year's type meeting, very, very effective topic.